It's aliens and they're living in your town. They have arrived. What? They're all around. So many aliens living in your town.
Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing today?
Not bad.
All right, let's do a roll call. Vicky?
Here.
Mr. Denny's?
Here.
Beckett? Bitch boy Beckett. Where is bitch boy? He's out, saving lions today? Where's he at?
Yeah, I think he's in Nepal right now.
So just to let you guys know, we're not going to be doing the hot seat. I know we've talked about that before. I want everybody to be in the room together and we all can kind of make who's ever on the hot seat feel uncomfortable. People were too also responding about the hot seat with Mr. Ryan Beckett and said I was too easy on him. I don't know. What do people want? They want him to cry?
They want blood, Bird.
They want blood and pain and tears.
Well, maybe they should write in the questions then.
Vicky, you must be psychic because you're reading my mind.
I try.
That is a great idea because that's what we're going to be doing. We are going to have the people write up questions and put them on our Facebook, on the Weird and Whatever Facebook area. Just write anywhere on our... Anywhere. If we put a post up there, put your questions or just send them into the KVJ show.
Yeah, you can send them at mail@kvjshow.com.
And say these are the hot seat questions I want to ask Vicky.
For Weird and Whatever.
Yeah, for Denny's. And we'll even put Bitch Boy Beckett back on. Let's do it.
What about Bird? Does he get around in this?
You can totally, good luck trying to make me sweat. I'll answer all your weak-ass questions. I want to start off with a kind of a spiritual question here. And I don't think we've talked about that. You get one question with God, okay? You get to ask God one question. You'll get all-knowing, every part of the answer you want, but you only get one. So if it's, hey, God, how you doing? And that you accidentally say that, that's what you get. What is your question, Denny's?
I'd ask him, what is this all for? Not necessarily why, just more like, what is this for? Personal enjoyment? Is this a hobby? You know, like, what is this for?
When I say God, too, I mean whatever you...
Higher governing
Exactly,
spirit.
yes.
Yeah, I'd just be like, what is all this? Like, why is there such vast differences between creatures? Why are some designed solely for one chore and other ones can do multiple things? Just why? Why are trees trees? Why are water?
So you would think that would be everyone's question, right? Why are we here as humans? What's the purpose of all that? I'm kind of on the same vein as you, Denny's. I would just say, what's the purpose to all of this?
Well, as humans, we're taught everything has a purpose, you know, or everything's a reward and consequence. So, like, to not have that answer is insane.
Vicky, what are your thoughts on the matter?
Probably I would ask why people's lives are so different. Like, why does one person get to have this type of life and the other person has this type?
And what if God comes back with merely chance?
Do I get another question then? 'Cause that answer sucks.
You get the risk of not having your the best answer thrown at you. No, but that's an interesting, that's a great question as well.
Yeah, why the different, like you said, why do some people get this and some people don't?
Yeah.
Well, you know, even when I was 5 years old, walking around, looking at flowers or looking at plants, I'd always go, why is it like this? Or anytime you ask, why are we here? Why is the sun? People automatically think you're high.
Yeah, they like pack up another one.
But I've been asking those questions for a long time. Were you like that, Vicky, as a kid, asking what's the purpose? What's the meaning to all this?
Yeah, and I also, things like would blow my mind because I'd look at plants or something and go, wow, that is so amazing. Like, how did it become that way? Or when you think about some of the stupid things we do as human beings and like body parts and functions and stuff, and you know, you're kind of like, oh, why was that designed that way?
Well, I think too, as adults, you start to lose that wonderment. Kind of, you start to not get impressed with things like you used to as a kid. I think that's an important thing. I think you should always still be impressed with, oh my gosh, these flowers are growing in this invisible force.
Well, it's
pretty
crazy.
Cool.
It's like, not only is there just flowers, there's like thousands of different types of the same exact thing. You're like, why so many different types of the same thing?
Well, it's the detail of everything that is bizarre. You can, you know, with your whole theory of the Big Bang Theory, I'll hear you out on that, but why? How did the Big Bang Theory give such detail of the elephant or the giraffe? That's what I've always wondered. So this Big Bang Theory happens, and then all of these things happen.
And that was an argument I heard years ago. Somebody used the example they used an example of a watch, and they showed a watch, and they said, this is perfectly organized. It has a perfect function. You know what it's for. They took that watch and they smashed it into a million pieces. And they said it didn't go from organization to chaos. That's what happened. But our Earth, they're trying to say it went from chaos to organization.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. You're saying that there was a big explosion and it went from complete chaos to that. Well, when we exploded that watch, it went from organization to chaos, the opposite.
And to back to your point, Denny's, where there's always, the human mind, we always have to make it.
Answers.
Well, this is what we want. It's beginning, middle, and end. But is that just a human concept?
It is. Yeah, we're not given any of that.
Well, technically, I guess beginning, middle, end would be the same thing for an animal, right?
What do you mean?
They probably look at, okay, I'm here, I got to survive, and then it's over. Or animals don't even feel or think those things.
You wonder what they think.
Yeah.
I mean, to what complexity they think, Because we don't know. We're all speculating what we think animals think about. We think they probably act on just pure impulses and survival instincts. But you wonder if, a dog obviously looks at its owner lovingly. But are they assimilating you with an alpha pack member? Or do they legitimately look at you and say, I like you, because you feed me? Is that the sole reason? What's the motivator?
Well, it all comes down to that question whether animals have real emotions. And, there's been a lot of things where they've shown animals who were getting ready to get euthanized, and they were crying. Like, they knew what was going to happen to them, and they were physically crying.
I don't see how anybody can think animals don't have emotions about things. I mean, have you ever had a dog? There's no way animals don't have emotions, for sure.
But then I also argue, then why do animals not get to go to heaven?
Well,
But do they?
But there's a lot of people who think they do.
I think every creature should, technically, if there is another plane to move to. You think every creature would. Why would anything be exempt from that?
But you are right. I have heard many humans say animals, they don't. I mean, there's still a lot of disrespect for animals out there. A lot of people don't see the genius that animals bring. And animals bring their own genius, y'all. They really do.
Oh, they do. There was that video of when that earthquake went off, and they had the camera in the place with all the cats, and all the cats, 25 seconds before the hurricane went off, all started freaking out, and then you saw everything start shaking. So it's another sense they have for natural disasters.
They say crawfish. Oh, the crawfish don't know shit. They're not worried about anything. Crawfish, yeah. Do you see the video of the one crawfish that cut his own arm off to not go into the boiling pot? They're trying to put this crawfish into this boiling pot. It cuts off its own hand and then starts to slither away.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so everyone's shrimp. Screw the shrimp. They don't know shit. They're not thinking anything. How do you know? Did the shrimp email you and tell you we don't give a shit if you boil and cook us?
And who decided that's how we cook lobster and crawfish, is to throw a live creature into boiling water so that it explodes their brain and then you eat them?
My whole point is we act like we know. And do we?
All this stuff.
Do we know?
We think we know everything. Well, so I guess technically you could say instead of humans knowing, which is what I think people think we do, we always just theorize on what we think. Assume, yeah. But we're just guessing at everything. We label things just to make it easy for us to identify them. But that's just a personal labeling system that we use just to identify things. It doesn't really do anything else aside from that.
Fascinating stuff. Someone showed me that they're showing pictures of they put these little droplets of rainwater, or I'm sorry, not rainwater, canal water, and you can't see anything with the naked eye underneath the microscope. All of these little animals had faces, and I mean, it looked like a different world. It was a whole different, new world. Don't you dare close your eyes. Yeah, it was like a whole new world. And just to kind of piggyback what you're saying about all the animal stuff, that's a whole world we're not even really familiar with. Your average human's not thinking about amoeba and euglena. Oh,
totally. And there's a whole complex system of organisms and stuff that we don't ever even think about or even care about. Nobody cares about
they have their own way of living over there.
But those are living creatures too. You would think essentially they would have a next plane they would move to as well. Why else would they? I mean, there's septuple the times amount of those that there are than humans or creatures on this earth. There's quadruple amount.
But can you imagine how we would have our minds blown if we had to worry about all of those different creatures? Like every time you step on the rug, you're killing an amoeba or something. I mean, we wouldn't be able to function if you had a heart and you acknowledged every single living creature and their pain and stuff. you'd go crazy.
I will say this though, looking at these things underneath the microscope, looking at all these alien-like
Single cell organisms.
Oh, they look like aliens. They do. They've got big old fangs and shit. I'm starting to become more convinced that those possibly might be aliens. The unicellular organisms.
Absolutely.
I mean, is that crazy of a theory?
Well, no, absolutely not. But, I mean, you could also think if you zoom the microscope out on Earth or the galaxy that we're in, the Milky Way galaxy, that we're just organisms on a much gianter creature that doesn't even care about us.
We're just amoebas, dog. We're just euglenias.
They're super complex. And even viruses, like when you get sick or you catch a cold, that's still a living bacteria, a living virus that's in your body just trying to survive. It's just trying to do its best.
That's a great point, Vicky. If you are worrying about the amoebas of the world and the euglenias...
Yeah.
I'll stop saying amoeba and euglena.
Yeah.
But no, it's. I thought it's fascinating. I really do. I'm starting to think that these microorganisms could possibly. I don't know.
Well, they survive a lot. So I mean, whether human life is eradicated from Earth or animal life is eradicated, I mean, they're still there. You wonder if there's like a potency to them, which is why we have life. Like water by itself is just water, but with the creatures in it, it's nutrients or it's whatever.
That's a great point. I would like to hear scientists out there, if we have any listening, tell me why my alien theory on these microorganisms, why it's a terrible theory. I would like to hear science behind that.
Well, who's to say that the little microorganisms are not actually the offspring of the aliens and they're simply here on Earth to observe us and to keep us in check?
I mean, now we're getting weird. Okay, Vicky, I'm liking this shit. Good point. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, technically, they could be tiny aliens, and when you drink them, they're observing your internals, and they're like, all right, let's send this data off. You know, it could be just their job.
Maybe I'm tired, but these theories don't sound that crazy to me.
I mean, technically, you can't disregard any theory because I mean,
there's some theories you can totally say, all right, there's no way.
For sure,
aliens aren't living in peanut butter, or are they?
But I'm saying, like, the stuff that is theory that we accept is pretty ludicrous. Like the fact that we just accept that the sun and moon rise every day is pretty ludicrous. But that's so commonplace to us that we don't even question it.
Well, we talk about hiding behind definitions. We get all the definitions behind that stuff, but really, what is why?
Yeah.
You're right. The question back to God. Why? What's going on here?
It's
why?
Why is there gravity? Why are certain things pulled by it? Why is everything like it is? It's really insane.
We swear nobody's stoned right now.
Yeah,
honestly, very, very, very clear-headed. maybe that's a problem. I don't know.
We're too clear.
So again, still getting so much feedback on murderers and truckers and people on the freeway. Holy crap. Now, it's a little lengthy. I had to edit some of the emails, so I'll try to go as quick as possible, but I thought it was a pretty fascinating email. Dear Word and Whatever, love the podcast. I was 23 years old and had something similar happen to what happened to Jay Bird's friend. I was going to the bathroom at this restaurant in the middle of Nevada. As I'm walking out of the bathroom, a man with what looked like a sword came towards me and told me not to move. He then said, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to cut off your head and play with it for a while. Holy crap. The holy crap's my own words. I didn't read this email, did I? This is a different one about cutting off the head.
I'm just absorbing it.
I'm just wondering. Okay, I immediately started running. He tried to grab me, but dropped his knife in the process. He started chasing me. I got to my car, and just like in a scary movie, I dropped my keys. Thank God I drove off in time. I did call the cops, and they told me they would investigate, but nothing ever came of it. I did not live there, so there wasn't much I could do. I love the murder stuff and topics you guys keep bringing up. Keep up the great work.
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
that's one of many emails I'm getting about people who've been attacked on these rest stops.
How long would it take you to come back from that?
Never. I don't come back from it.
I think it changes you from that point forth.
Yeah, if someone has a knife, tell me they're going to cut off my head and then play with it. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to cut off your head and play with it. Yeah.
And it was on my mind because my kids and I took a ride last week, and unfortunately, my son at one point said, yeah, I need to use the bathroom.
Yeah, I know.
And their only place was one of those rest stops.
Oh, dude, I'll drive an extra 40 miles.
Well, even my dad has a story of him in a rest stop. Someone trying to jump him. They didn't try to murder him, but they were going to do something to him. So my question to you guys is, we have, how many people on the earth? 7 billion, 6 billion people? Is that where we're at now, roughly around that?
It's been a while since I looked.
What's the percentage of people that are just so gone that they would randomly kill people in a rest stop. Like, well, what do you think the percentage? Is it 1 in 100 people that would do that? Is it 1 in 1,000? Is it so? I mean, I'm getting so many emails about this stuff. Whether they're real or not, I can't confirm it. I don't think people are lying to me unless they just want to hear their story on the podcast, which is always possible. But people in my personal life that I know this has happened to, other people have had stories that have come up and talked to me. What the hell's going on in these truck stops?
Yeah, I still think the percentage is probably low, but just the fact that it's there. I mean, I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people. I'm sure if you asked 1,000 people, let's see, I mean, there would have to be. I mean, how many people do you think out of 1,000 have been attacked?
I'm going to put
in their
10% on it.
I'm with you, Vicky.
Like about
1 out of
10%.
10. I think if say, and let's do it. Let's ask the audience right now. If you've ever had somebody try to take you or try to, pull out a knife and try to stab you in these kind of situations where you're just a person randomly doing your own thing and someone's trying to take you, I would love to hear those stories.
That's what I mean by the random acts of violence like
yes.
this. Opposed to, because I had a buddy, me and my buddy stopped at a gas station. He was walking in to buy cigarettes, and the guy was leaving the gas station, bumped shoulders with him. My buddy goes, "Hey, what's up, man? Watch out." And the guy pulls out a knife and stabbed him, and then just jumped on his motorcycle and took off. And my buddy got stabbed in the chest. And so the police came, the ambulance came. It was crazy. It was this whole thing. But that was not a random act of violence.
Altercation, kind of.
That was an altercation.
Yeah, I'm not looking for those. I'm looking for, you're just driving your bike, riding your bike.
Met you before.
Guy in a van comes up, get in the car, and they try to grab you. I want to hear those stories. And if I get, so many emails, then we'll have somewhat of an answer.
Yeah.
If I get more than... If I get more than 10 emails, I'm like, oh, shit.
Horrifying.
It's pretty good.
I mean, that's next level. Some guy's like, I'm going to stab you. That's different than some guy like, oh, I'm going to play with your head and fucking wear your feet.
I mean, that's like a movie thing.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not going to hurt you.
I don't know if you ever come back from that.
I'm just going to cut off your head and play with it.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, my God.
If you escape too, I mean, you're rattled.
I don't come back from that.
Yeah. You would never be able to trust anyone.
Well, I think every time someone like, hey, what's up? And they like pat you on your shoulder, like, ah!
Yeah.
Good emails, though. Keep them coming.
Gosh.
That's good stuff.
Horrifying.
So let's go from murder to a topic I know is very near and dear to your heart, Denny's.
All right.
The 24-hour news cycle that we are constantly living in. Every human
It's a plague.
The only way you can get away from the 24-hour news cycle is if you unplug. You go on Facebook, people are regurgitating the news cycle to you. If you turn on the radio, you're hearing the news cycle.
You watch TV.
Is this
internet.
a good thing that we are so connected, or is it a bad thing? Let's start with Vicky, because I know you're very passionate, and I'm passionate about it too, Denny's. Good thing, Vicky, that we're reporting on everything 24 hours?
I think that with anything in life, it shouldn't be too much of anything. So I think that we are to the point where everything is too much, but part of it is that we can't trust what is legitimate and what is made up. So that's part of it too.
Do you have a news source that you actually trust?
What I do, I'm one of those people who actually avoids the news. I don't watch news on television. I don't read the newspaper. My only source of anything in the outside world, unfortunately, is Facebook. But when I see something on Facebook, then I'll go ahead and Google and try to see if I can find the real source of it and see if there's, contradictions to that story and things like that. So I'm actually the anti-news person. I try not to get involved because it is so depressing. It weighs so heavy on me that I choose not to deal with it on a daily basis.
Well, the first thing they teach you in journalism class is if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, they do. They teach that to you, saying murder, death, and mayhem is always great for our business. That's what they always say that, and that's that's scary and messed up because. You're right.
That makes you seek that out now as part of your news source. You want to make sure.
Well, even when it's not even there.
Or to exasperate a story or to go hunt it out, which is like going back to how many people get attacked randomly. the reason maybe because you solicited for that topic and now people are submitting stuff, just like the news, they're showing that more. You're going to think there's a ton of violence out there when maybe there's actually less and just everybody's trying to report on it because it gets you the best ratings.
That's a great look at that. Very good. You're right. I just did what I'm cursing. I just asked people.
But I mean,
so,
it's just
no,
hard.
But you're
it's
right,
just a
though.
tough place to really gauge something.
It is. It's a very tough place to gauge. But I do think having the 24-hour news cycle, it is a bad thing. I do. I think it's a very bad thing, and I think it's turning people into weirdos and not the good kind.
Well, the problem is not only is there one channel that's 24-hour news, there's like tons of channels that are 24-hour news. So everybody's trying to have news all the time, and they're trying to have better news than their competitors because they're all rated. The fact that we're rating news stations is insane because then, of course, they're going to try to find those crazy stories. And you might not, it wouldn't even be above them to go out there and create stories themselves to get better ratings, especially to push whatever agenda they push on their channel.
You nailed it with the whole ratings thing. Ratings will drive people crazy. Look what it does for our show. We're driven on ratings, and we don't even do a news show. We do an entertainment show with sometimes we'll have some news stories more opinion based, but ratings will make you go crazy. You'll do anything for ratings.
Well, it's the same thing with the money. Once you add money, people are going to want to be compensated for how much work they put in. Just like if a news station is getting the actual news and getting out there, they're going to want to make more money or get better ratings than another news station who's not. And that competition is going to cause them to compete with each other and try to outdo each other. So I don't think there should be multiple. If we had one 24-hour news, that'd be different. But sometimes there just really isn't 24 hours worth of news at all the time.
My favorite is when like legit news people are forced to read a Kim Kardashian story and they lose it.
Because you know it's a slow news and everybody goes slow news day.
And they lose. There was one, I forget who it was, a Paris Hilton story, and this news person, I'm not reading it. I am not reading this. They were so pissed off.
Which brings me to this point. I guess now it would be 88 years ago in 1930, the BBC news announcer announced on the radio that unfortunately there's no news today. And so since they can't have dead air, they had a guy play piano. They played piano for 15 minutes because there was no news.
You hear that, Vicky? Sounds like someone's ramping up for some Denny's Random Facts. Bring it to us and give it to us.
But that's crazy.
That is a ridiculous, over-the-top, mind-blowing statement because that would never happen in our age.
Never
Where
happen
some
now.
dude just playing piano because there's nothing to report
They had
on.
nothing. There's no news. They're like, hey, no news today.
But they would
Here's
fill
some-
it in with like feel-good news then. Like nowadays
Nowadays,
they'd come up
they
with
would.
some Good Samaritan stories and things like that to
Or-
fill the time. But back then, maybe they didn't do any kind of reports like that.
Well, they didn't. Yeah. Well, I don't think gossip and celebrity news started getting popular until a little bit later.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Because originally news was news. You'd tune in to see what happened that day, and then the bleeds it leads type thing started. So you started seeing the trends with the murder stories. I mean, I can only recall back to like the late '80s, early '90s as a kid, but I remember seeing a lot of murder specials because I think a lot of those companies were starting to really see that their ratings were going up if they were doing that before we even turned to 24-hour news.
Well,
back when they just had news at night.
There's something about murder that moves the needle. I mean, that's the reason why they have a investigate network.
Crime Network, yeah.
It's just about murder. That's all my dad watches. Like, hey, watching some more murder specials. Yep, sure am. All right, Merry Christmas. It's always death, mayhem, but I'm the same way.
Fascination by it.
It is. We talk about, we talked about the ethics sometimes of, should you give the murderer's name out there? Do they get because someone's going to say they're getting limelight. And I totally see that side of the argument. But I also am fascinated about talking about murder. And does that make me a weirdo?
No, I think it's so counter to what we personally believe as people.
Right.
We are not people who go out and maliciously attack and murder. So the fact that somebody does it, you can't help but take fascination in that because you're just, what's going through your mind that you, like, did you snap? Is this like how you've always been? Do you hate this type of person so much that you commit these acts of violence? Like, it's fascinating just because you can't grasp it personally.
Right. It's so far removed from us. It's like reading, something that's complete fiction, even though it's nonfiction.
But I'm with you, Vicky. I can't watch the news. I can't. It does. It affects my mood. It makes me depressed. I can maybe watch a broadcast and go, oh, that was awful. I don't want to do that again. But if I do watch the news on like 3 days in a row, it severely affects my mood. It does.
Well, there's places that the TV's never off and it's always playing the news. It's on the news all day. You don't think that affects you subconsciously throughout your day? It makes you edgier, it makes you a little bit more irritable?
Well, I'm a very big believer that your thoughts kind of drive the mood.
Like dictate
yeah,
you.
well, yeah. If you have good thoughts in your head, when you wake up and you got good things going on, you tend to, barring any kind of disaster going on in your day, you're like, all right, I'm in a good space. But how did you get to that good space? What were you putting in your head to get to that good space? Were you talking to a loved one that makes you feel good? Were you reading something positive? Did you do something positive that made you feel self-gratifying? I really do feel like the stuff you put in your head affects your mood.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying this genius statement over here.
No,
but I think it's something that we all fall into a
forget
trap.
about.
Yeah, subconsciously, it can poison you a little bit.
I think as humans, we forget about a lot of things that are just fundamentals because you get caught up. I mean, we're caught up in everything. You have in your hand something that can look up anything you desire at any moment of your life. We have access to so much. I think we get overloaded that we forget about the basics of life.
You are so right. That's why people go out in the woods and reset.
There's a lot of, especially like celebrity figures, or I mean, celebrity in old timey sense, like your Hemingways or authors who did hit a level of success in their time, which was probably hard for them to handle. Like, I mean, by today's standards, I think people crave a success, but back then, I think a lot of people didn't necessarily. Some people, creative figures, didn't want it, but a lot of times you find later in life they recluse, they hermit themselves from society. It's almost like you hit a point of possibly self-awareness, or you just see how people, maybe you get something they don't get and then you disassociate from them because you can't level with them anymore.
Interesting point, Denny's.
And I think having things at our fingertips makes us lazy. We don't exercise our brain. I remember back in the day, you'd see an actor or an actress on TV and you're like, where did I see them before? And you would rack your brain over and over until you finally came up with it. And it was so satisfying when you finally came up with it. But now I cop out and I grab my phone and I stick their name in and see their list of movies that they were in.
Yeah.
I don't even try anymore.
Yeah, no, you both are bringing up great points because, to your point, Denny's, you're right. People, a lot of time, I'm very guilty of this, knowing what is the right thing to do and not doing it because you get bogged down from just looking at the internet, working too much, just all the bullshit life is. You forget basic things like, hey, Jaybird, watching this bullshit's going to affect you. Stop doing it. What are you doing? You know this, but you just can't compute it.
Absolutely.
And I know it. It's a basic thing.
It's just weird. It's weird times that we're in. And to Vicky's point, just the fact that we can have everything it has made us lazy. It's made us irritable. It's made us impatient.
Why would you say it makes
inconsiderate.
Why does it make us irritable?
Well, because we're used to getting anything we want at any point easily. If something takes 15 extra seconds, we lose our shit over it. It's crazy.
Or the internet's down.
I know.
Internet goes down in a building, you see people shut down.
Oh my God! God forbid if I'm a remote control. Like if I'm a remote.
Think about traffic.
My talk thing.
Oh,
that's how spoiled we're getting.
Well, so if you're making a right-hand turn and it's one of those straight or right-hand lanes, and the car in front of you is going straight, but you need to make a right, you want to fucking strangle that dude.
A priest would. Yeah, I know.
It's holding you up, what, 30 extra seconds in your day? And are you getting home to a fucking bomb that's about to go off? No, you're going home so you can put your feet up.
There's been times where, I'm like, something's taking longer. I'm like, we have a meeting? What the shit?
You start shouting about, not you, I'm saying everybody.
No, but yeah, you're right. And I'm like, well, what am I getting mad? You're going to go home and you're going to walk the dog and you're going to go work on some shit with Denny's that doesn't matter if you're 10 minutes late, You're right.
It's just crazy. We get so bent about everything.
That's a very good point about how we're getting irritable. That's a great point, Denny's.
Joan Rivers had a joke years ago. I think it was about Elizabeth Taylor, and it was when, microwaves were fairly new, and she said she's the only one that stands in front of the microwave and yells, "Hurry!" And that's what we're doing now. Is that we expect everything, like you said, instantaneous, and it's not. We still have to wait for things.
I don't like the way that makes me. I mean, I've been impatient because you're right. Just the way the world is now, I don't like when I get like that. I hate my biggest flaws that I hate is impatience. I hate that. Sometimes I'm really good at it, and then if I'm in a bad mood or I'm tired, I struggle with it sometimes, and I hate that about myself.
So then it all comes back to mood. If your mood's in a positive mood, you'd probably be like, fuck it.
You're right. That's
It's
why
weird.
I'm a big believer in meditation when I actually am doing meditation. You can talk about it as much as you want. If you're not doing it, it means diddly dick.
Meditation, man, rest in your mind helps. I mean, I know it's very like, Western America thinking, and it's very hippy dippy. But man, it really is a good thing for your brain to let it rest a little bit.
It really does annoy me when people go, I don't have the mind to meditate. Nobody's got the mind to meditate.
You have to practice it.
You have to. It takes months.
Nobody jumps into it and just kills it.
No, man. And it gets to the point where people who are really, really at that next level of meditating, I mean, they're meditating twice a day for 30 minutes a block. I mean, they're working out their mind. And what they've done is they've made a complete shift in just the way they live their life. They know meditating twice a day for 30 minutes or an hour a day, that's like brushing their teeth. That's like eating.
Or it's like working out, like working on your physical body, which everybody works on their physical body. Given that's what everybody sees. It's the first thing you're judged on when you meet somebody. But at the same time, that's not the most important thing. Your internal well-being is probably the most important thing. People should work just as much on their internal as their external.
What are your thoughts on the whole meditation, Vicky? Are you one of those people, I can't do it because of my mind?
Okay, yes. But I do it in my own way.
Sure.
Not in the way that you probably meditate, but for me, like, my downtime is reading a book. And I'm actually thinking while I'm reading the book. And I relax and I bring myself, if I'm up here, by the time I'm through reading, I'm down here. I'm nice and calm and even keeled.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because yes, when I say meditate, I really don't mean just
for sure.
What I mean is getting to that space in your life where you're able to clear it all out, get honest with yourself. And you're right. There's so many different forms of meditation. There's walking meditation, whether you're reading a book, whatever you can get to that place. That's I think it's important for people.
And the stupid thing that I do, I only do it at night because you can't see in the car. But like, say I've gone to my friend's house in Port St. Lucie or something, and I'm driving home and it's late, I will crank up the stereo and sing at the top of my lungs because nobody can really see in the car because it's nighttime. I wouldn't do that during the day. But that is so therapeutic for that hour it takes me to get home. I am listening to songs from my childhood or news or whatever, and that's like my best time ever.
Something about music.
Yeah.
Dude, something about music. I tell everybody, their mother and their grandma, pick up an instrument. I don't care if you're 80 years old. You're not trying to sign with Columbia Records.
Sure.
You're not trying to get a record deal, but it is so good for your soul, whether it's a flute, a guitar,
anything.
Writing lyrics, any of that stuff. I cannot express how important that is for the human soul. I think it's... there's so many people that come up to me and say, I'm 48 years old. I would love to play an instrument. It's just too late. And I want to slap them, but I'm a pacifist. Dude, get it, learn, go to YouTube. This is when technology is actually good.
You're right. Use it for something beneficial.
Go buy a $100 guitar or
You're
a
right.
$70 guitar, learn 3 chords or write out some melody. But what you just said, because you're not the kind of person that's very, hey, everybody, look at me.
Right.
You're not the kind of person that's going to get up there and sing a song in front of people. But music to you does something.
Oh yeah, it always has. Even from childhood, I would go put my headphones on. You know, the old-fashioned stereo. You know, we had the headphones, the big giant ones, and you know, you had the big old cord. And I would listen to music. Of course, back then I was probably jamming out the Sean Cassidy, Keith Garrett, something like that. But it always made. And I used to say to people, I never did drugs. I never got drunk when I was younger, and part of it. And I never felt like overly depressed because if I felt I was getting down, put on that music.
Billy Joel saved my life. Totally. Billy, because I was, as growing up in high school, I was a goody two-shoes. I didn't do anything like that. And when I'd get depressed and down and out, Billy Joel and the lyrics, it was like a drug.
For sure.
Music can do something to... At least, and I only speak from my own experience, but it does something to me.
Chemically to your body.
To my body, where I'm just like, I feel like I'm on something.
Rhythm is so weird. Like, you can't help but hear a drum beat and, like, tap your foot. Your body just wants to move to it.
There's different levels of love for music, and I understand that because there's some people who, I like food, but they don't love food. There's people that like music, they don't love music. I'm just saying it is something that's very therapeutic that can really get you out of some dark times, whether it's writing or it's playing or even listening to music and singing. There's something spiritual about that, in my opinion.
Now, my mom was one of those people that never, ever voluntarily would turn on the radio. Never listened to music, but my dad was a musician. So that would be the only time when she went to go hear him because he had a little bluegrass band. So she would go and listen to him, play music, and that's the only time. But for our family, probably because of my dad, music was so important to everyone but my mother. But she always supported us. You could hear my stereo, and I live on 2.5 acres. You could hear it way down at the road because she let me play it as loud as I wanted to play it because she knew I was enjoying it. And she never said, turn that down. My brother had a drum set. He lived in the room upstairs. He played his drums whenever he felt like it in that house. Because even though she didn't care for music, it wasn't her thing, she knew it was important to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very blessed to have grown up in a house that really held music to a high. You know,
Same here.
just like, you know, we really loved music in our house. Even my mom, who didn't play, you know, any kind of music, always had records and albums on and all that kind of stuff and dancing around.
I'd say every day there was music playing in our house as well, just on speakers.
Well, I just think, too, with music, it can be a learning tool. There's just so much that go.
It teaches you a lot.
It teaches you a lot. I could go on and on about music. Well,
But
just the effects of it.
Well, so the effects, but even if you just break it down to the instrument itself, learning guitar teaches you discipline. It also teaches you working in groups if you work with other musicians, which most music's done in groups.
Yeah.
It really does teach you a lot fundamentally, too.
The other thing going on, just like weird moments you have, like we were talking about music, and it spiritually does, it's like a drug or something.
Yeah.
You can feel it altering your mind. Have you guys ever had this where you are outside and it's only for just a brief 2 seconds, and it's out of the blue and you never know what's going to happen, and it actually, for me, it's gone away as I've gotten older. When I was younger, it would happen a lot. Well, you'll be sitting outside, and for 2 seconds, you would have just unbelievable clarity. Everything was peaceful. Everything kind of made sense. You were at ease, and then all of a sudden, it was like it knocked you out, and everything wasn't so vibrant and so visible. Has it ever happened to you guys? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
Kinda. I think maybe everybody experiences a little different, because I'll get moments of clarity too, but
Clarity with peace.
with peace.
Yes, where you are so relaxed. Honestly, it would be my definition of how you would feel in the afterlife.
All right.
But it's so, I mean, it is like 2 seconds long, and then you're back into that. Do you know what I'm talking about, Vicky?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it one other time on the show. It's like if I'm depressed or whatever, going outside and standing there, like you said, in that one moment where you realize the sun is beautiful, the sky is blue, and there's a gentle breeze, you just get this overwhelming sense of peace, and you know that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, and there's like a physical feeling with. I can feel like it's like alcohol or a drug or something, and I'm completely sober when this goes down. It's just it's a weird thing.
I mean, those chemicals are in your brain. You can activate them not through drugs. So if
Sure.
you find that if you have that feeling of esteem, success, overcoming, those can all create the same type of feelings. It's a dopamine rush.
It'd be like, okay, for example, I remember this one moment specifically. I was playing wiffle ball. This is more of a recent one. I was playing wiffle ball and everyone was real tired. It was kind of hot, but then the clouds came up. Everything became very, very comfortable, and then all of a sudden, like the sun was hitting, and everything was just. This is the best way I can explain it. I really can't explain it any other way.
So what's your favorite, like, most peaceful time of day? Like, what is it? Because for me, not to cut you off, would be right as it's slightly overcast, the air kind of gets a little bit sweeter in scent, and colors like subdue right before it rains. That would be my ideal time where I could probably hit that like nirvana that you're talking about.
I do love that, and that is some of the times it'll happen. But then there'll be other times where that same nirvana type feeling will happen without the clouds, without the rain. And I see where you're going. Is it the conditions,
or is it just
creating
your
that?
mindset?
And I thought that too. But those moments happen even without clouds. Good point, though. I'm glad Ricky knows what the hell I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking
Because I
about.
wound feel very crazy. I'm like,
No, I
sound
mean,
like a madman over here.
That's why I couldn't ever live up north, because I wouldn't survive winter. Because I need the sunshine, I need the green plants and things, and I need that gentle breeze. Like, to be stuck in snow for those many months, I couldn't do it.
Well, my sister lives out in Oregon, and she loves it out there. She's big into like the farming. She's got a big animal lover, but they could have some depressing weather. And she told me, she said, look, the weather can really mess with a person's head. It can make you kind of paranoid. It can make you depressed. Weather, I mean, I think it's part of our
Absolutely.
being, our makeup is we connect with the weather.
Imagine living in like Siberia where it's always cold. That'd be so rough.
Yeah, I think there's a spiritual element to weather with the human body.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shutting down the room, bird.
I'm not trying to shut the room down. In fact, it's not good if the room's shut down. Here's an email. My dad found some buried treasure, but does not want to turn it to the government. Well, I don't blame him because the government, they're gonna take it from you.
Well, they're gonna put it in a museum, probably.
He found this treasure right off the Treasure Coast here in Florida. You guys would be shocked on how much treasure is still out there. If you guys found treasure, would you keep it or turn it into Uncle Sam? Ron from Stewart. Hopefully that's not your real name, Ron.
Did he put his address too? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if I find buried treasure, I am not turning that into the government.
Well,
no way.
How would you sell it?
Black market, dog.
Yeah, I guess you're right. You could hit up the internet black market, or you could sell it to a pawn shop. If it's gold too, then you could just sell it as gold weight.
I think you hold on to it and you do research until you find somebody you can sell that to. I mean, you are sitting on potentially a lottery ticket, depending on what you have.
What if it's cursed gold?
Oh, me don't like that, Denny's.
Well, you don't know until you like make it into a necklace and you're wearing it.
Do you turn it in, or do you?
I would keep it, but I probably wouldn't sell it.
What if you found out it was worth like $1 million?
I'd sell a little bit.
I'd sell some of it. I'd be like, yeah, I found these 6 coins.
Look at this Chester copper pot, or what I really treasured over here.
I'd probably, I'd hold on to some of it for personal, just because I found it. But I'd give it to a museum and I'd have it, Denny's treasure.
Well, do you believe what this email is saying, that there's still so much buried treasure off the Treasure Coast, you think, still?
Totally, man. There's probably a bunch of places across the eastern coast of America where there's a lot of shipwrecks.
So do you think if we got a boat together and with a couple people that knew what they were doing, our potential of finding buried treasure is high? It's possible here?
This is still a real job. There's treasure hunters. People go out and look for this stuff.
I wonder how much is out there. I would love to know. Because there's different treasure from different time periods.
But I think you would have to do a heck of a lot of research, which there wouldn't be a lot out there about where there possibly could have been a ship that, it's basically looking for a needle in a haystack.
Did Goonies make you guys want to go out and find buried treasure like it did for me?
Oh, yeah. We used to go in the backyard and dig, like as if there was treasure.
Yeah, my dad...
We used to bury our own and then...
Try to find it.
Try to find it.
Well, my dad bought me this treasure like map book about all the stuff in Florida right after I'd watched the Goonies. And he got into it too, because it's very fast. The idea of being able to look in the water and find something that could change your life is awesome.
Oh, because it's just you just get a freebie. It's the greatest.
Well, not really.
We bought a.
So which do you think is easier? You think it would be easier to find Bigfoot or to find sunken treasure?
Treasure.
Yeah, treasure. I'd say there's more instances of it.
Well, just because it's not alive. Bigfoot's alive.
It's moving.
It's doing stuff and, survival.
I dropped a pair of glasses off a boat once and then jumped in the water and felt around. It wasn't even that deep, and I lost them. We're talking about like this deep of water. I could not even find them. They were gone. So I can't imagine trying to find treasure. Oh. Plus, as the ocean shifts down below, it probably gets buried even further.
The stuff I've lost in a room no bigger than a cubby hole with nothing in it is amazing. So if I drop something in the water, it's never coming
back. I swear,
back.
I dropped them within half a second. I was trying to find them, and they were gone. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Have you ever dropped something like right in front of you? There's nothing around you, and it's like a pin, and you're looking, you're trying to find. It's gone. It's in a sarlacc of just nothingness.
Oh, if you kick the remote off your bed, it's like you have to like uproot your entire bed to find it. It's like under a cover. You're like, how?
Oh, I can get into some real bad moods where I've dropped something. I just get comfortable. I'm real tired. I'm in a bitchy ass mood, and the remote, I can hear it hit every metal thing. I think so. My couch is the kind where you have to lift up, unzip.
Yeah.
You have to dig in that bitch. Oh, terrible. It's always when you just have your drink set.
Oh yeah, you just get comfortable.
The worst. It is kind of a heavy email. Do I want to do that email? We're having such fun.
Yeah, how heavy is it?
What time is it? We got Well, there is a story. This is heavy, but not as depressing. But there's this dude I was having you guys kind of read up on a little bit too. He has a locked-in syndrome, and what this was, he could hear everybody. He knew people were in the room, but he wasn't able to move. He wasn't able to talk. He was basically just there, and he still had his thoughts. So it's basically like Denny's right now, and now you can't talk, you can't move, you want to say shit, and no one knows that you are there. Like no one knows that you are having they think you're under like in a coma state.
Well, the weird part about the story when I looked into it was that it happened gradually from like a lower age to an older age. So he started losing his motor functions. So that's what's the odd part. He started losing them, and then they started collapsing very quickly to where he became essentially in a coma, but he could still blink his eyes. And that happened for like 3 years.
It was longer than that.
Well, so the whole
span.
The whole span was like 15 years. It was something extraordinarily long. But to where he was paralyzed to only eye movement was for 3 years of his life, randomly. And then he started getting some functions back in his face.
Could you imagine that?
I can't imagine the frustration.
Like you're of sound mind, and you all your thoughts are there. You can't articulate them.
Oh,
you can't.
shit.
I mean, people are talking shit about you.
Yeah, they're talking right there, and they're probably saying, "Oh, he probably can't even hear us," and you're screaming in your head, "Yes, I can."
Oh my gosh, that's like that.
Horrible.
It's the same thing I get. Anytime if I have to have a surgery, I'm always afraid I'm going to wake up in the middle of the surgery. You always hear those stories where, and you can't say anything.
You're under anesthesia.
You're trying to say something, and these guys or girls are trying to go around in your brain. Like,
oh yeah. Or they're talking trash about you, and you're just like listening to it.
To me, that would be the worst. Having full mind and not being able to articulate anything. I feel my heart breaks for anybody that has to go through that. That's terrible.
So yeah, it was like when he was young. It lasted. He fell into a vegetative state for about 4 years, and then came out of that starting around the age of 14. He started receiving home care, and then he started gaining some of his motor functions back, and then he started regaining his consciousness, motor functions around 16. It took about 2 years but there's no other cases of this. This is the most random thing ever.
He said he felt like he was trapped in his body for 10 years, where he was just trapped with his thoughts. Oh my gosh, man.
Well, if he's the only one they should name it after him.
Agreed.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think he coined the term locked-in syndrome.
Okay.
Because he wrote a book in 2011 called Ghost Boy, where he coined that term. But he's one of the few who's ever had this. He said there was one other person that he had researched about this, but aside from that, there's no one else. So what is that?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of weird medical stuff out there where it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, that's the weird thing about psychology and medicine. They're two things that, again, is another thing that humans try to label, but more of it is a theory until it could be 100% proven, but there's nothing that's 100%.
Well, to me, if something's 100% and it shows you, like, okay, this is 100% every single time, I'm like, all right, it's 100%. As soon as there's
2 + 2 is always 4.
As soon as there's one little thing in that whatever we're talking about where it's different and it's no longer 100%, we've got issues now. Nothing's absolute.
Now it's not absolute.
It's not an absolute thing. Yeah, it's the majority, but it's not every time. So that means there's something's flawed in there.
Once there's an anomaly, it can no longer be considered absolute, which is pretty much everything.
Pretty much. That's why everyone does 99.9, because they know.
They know better than to say 100%.
This kills 99.9 of the germs. There might be some germ that we don't know about that's going to fuck you up.
But that's it. Everything has to be 99.9% or to a percent of what they think, because you can't absolutely say anything.
You were talking about the one medical condition where, all of a sudden you've got hair on your tongue.
Oh, big, yeah, furry tongue. That one's
furry tongue. You're just living your life, Vicky, and all of a sudden you have furry tongue.
There's a couple. Black furry tongue can happen for a couple reasons. A lot of it's hygiene, but
what happens?
Okay, good. I'm safe.
What happens with the hygiene? How do you get black furry tongue if you don't have good hygiene?
Well, so one of the other ways to cause it is alcoholism as well. And they say what it is a bacteria forms on your tongue if you have bad hygiene, and that bacteria embeds into your tongue and causes black furry tongue.
Can you get rid of it?
Yes, you can get rid of it.
You can reverse it.
It's curable, but I mean, it leaves a discoloration on your tongue. But essentially, your tongue decays in the center and it decays in sections and causes little strands to stick out, and then it turns black from dying.
So it's not really hair.
It's not. No, it's called black furry tongue because it's what it resembles. But when I saw that, man, that rattled me. I was like, I had no idea that was even a thing. And one of my friends started getting it, and he didn't even have bad hygiene. But what it was the well water that he had a bacteria in it, and it caused him to have it.
That's not again. That's not fair.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's
That's
your
not
anomaly.
cool.
You're drinking water that you think is clean and fine. You find out. I mean, well water should be technically, and it is treated, but still, to have that where he was living locationally, having well water caused him to get this illness. Him and his family, so it's pretty weird.
That's pretty weird. That falls right into the vein of the podcast.
Well, then you're just like, all right, all bets are off now.
You're freaking me out, Denny's. Give us a couple Denny's random facts.
Oh yeah, let's see.
Let me say that again. Give us some of Denny's random facts. I gotta slow it on my hairy tongue.
All right. Well, here, I found this, and I thought this was pretty neat. For $45, you can go to the U.S. Bureau of Engraving and Printing, and they'll send you a 5-pound bag of $10,000 worth of shredded U.S. currency. They shred currency every year and then republish new money to keep it in circulation, and you can buy it. And in fact, they said if you could put it together and make a bill, go ahead. You could try to spend it.
Oh,
because they said it's such a pain.
That was literally money like that when they do all that stuff. That was in every head shop, every pot head shop in the 80s. You'd always have shredded money that they would sell to people.
That's so funny. You can still do it. They never got rid of it.
Do you remember that, Vicky, when they'd sell shredded money? No. Oh, really? Yeah, you weren't hanging out in head shops. What am I talking about?
I found this too. You know, we were talking about how the English language is pretty cool, and Vicky might have been out last when we were talking about this. We were talking about how cool the English language is because if we need a word like déjà vu, ménage à trois, any of those cool words, we can just adopt it into our language and then adopt the meaning. Well, the same thing works opposite for other countries who adopt English languages, and some other countries don't necessarily have words that we have or expressions that we use don't mean the same thing in another country. And one case of that was that Ashton Kutcher, Natalie Portman film, No Strings Attached. In France, No Strings Attached isn't a phrase. They have no idea what that means. So they couldn't figure out how to sell that movie. So they just titled it Sex Friends. Because there's no way for their language to express. That has not the same meaning.
That's good. I like it.
A similar story was they used to have those Chevy Novas, an old car. Well, when they stopped selling them in America, they started selling them in Spanish countries in South America. But the car didn't sell, and they couldn't figure out why. But in Spanish, Nova means no go. So nobody was buying this car because it meant the car didn't move. So it's just another example of doing some research before you go across the seas.
You mean it wasn't because they were butt ugly?
No.
Oh, you don't like a Nova?
I remember a Nova.
Oh, I used to have one.
I didn't have one, thank God.
I had a used Nova that had a hole on the floorboard, and it also caught on fire. It leaked gasoline, and if you had to take I drove it for like a year. It was awful. But yeah, a Nova. I loved that thing. It was so shitty. I've never had a nice car ever.
Let's see here. So I don't know how this will sit with you guys. I did some research, and they did do a study, and I just don't see how this was possible. But in a study they found by the Smell and Taste Research Foundation, the scent women found most arousing was Good and Plenty's mixed with cucumbers.
Well, the cucumber, I mean.
But the scent of it, you think?
Well, not the scent, but just maybe
Good and Plenty's are what? Yeah, I guess.
Good and Plenty's are terrible.
They're licorice, right?
Shitty snack out. Like
They obviously didn't ask me to participate in the study.
Yeah.
Mixed with cucumber was the most arousing scent in a blind scent test.
What year is this?
Amongst women. This is as of last year.
No, this is bullshit.
Well, that's why I precursored it with I don't
Good
know how
and
you guys
Plenty.
will feel with this. And I did look it up, and yes, they did do this study.
No, it's Perry Ellis 360. That's the best.
Vicky looking like she wants to punch you.
why
I might do it too.
That's why I'm precursored it. I knew you guys that would not sit well with you guys. But.
Good, you know how I feel about Good and Plenty.
Oh, dude, I hate Good and Plenty. I can't believe licorice was considered a candy. I hate that flavor.
I blame it all on the Great Depression. I just feel like people are losing their shit. Like, I don't know, licorice.
Here's a fun little tidbit fact for you. The Hunger Games. Before The Hunger Games was written by Suzanne Collins, she was a writer on the TV show Clarissa Explains It All.
Na 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 na. Oh, way, oh, cool.
It was Ferguson, her brother.
Oh, yeah,
but she was
come
a
on.
writer on that show before she wrote The Hunger Games.
Love that show.
That's just an example of like her career was writer for Closer Explains It All. They canceled the show. She's like out of the game. And then she was watching reality TV shows. And she was like, huh, what if they did like a reality TV show where people died on it? She was watching the news and reality, and that's when she came up with the Hunger Games. So it's pretty just funny. That was way later in her life that she became a famous author of the Hunger Games.
It's so weird what franchises I end up really liking. I love the Hunger Games.
That's a cool concept.
It's such a cool concept. There was one out of the 4 movies. There was one that I didn't like that much. But
The third movie was split into 2.
it might have been that. But
Yeah.
I just the whole. Did you watch the Hunger Games?
No, I have this thing about like people,
Children killing each other.
Yeah,
Got ya.
You know, I mean, if it's like Friday the 13th kind of thing, I'm really cool with that. But when it crosses over, you know, where it's, you know, that line between what could be real or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just
I don't know. I love it.
and I don't like movies where, well, again, with the exception of Jason and Friday the 13th, where people are being hunted.
Yeah.
Do you like the actual Friday the 13th movies?
Yeah. Yeah.
The first
one's
4,
awesome.
the first 4, I'll give you. They started getting real hokey.
No, my favorite one, I don't remember which one, you know.
We're talking Friday the
5,000.
13th? Okay.
Yeah, Friday the 13th is the one where the girl had telekinesis.
Oh, Vicky, that
I
is
like
such,
that one. Because she
telekinesis
gets-
Tina? Oh, that's
Yeah,
such a shitty
Because
movie.
she throws the nails at him. Come on.
From 1988, I believe that movie's from. Yeah, that's a shitty movie.
But I
Vicky.
like the fact that she fought back harder than most of them did, and she didn't even have to move.
I had such a crush on her. Oh, God. The blonde chick.
Like
Oh, yeah.
Larpar Lincoln or something like that. Is that
Bird.
her
I
name?
believe her name was Tina in the movie. Because that's my sister, my oldest
Yeah.
sister's name. Yeah.
I like the first one the best because it was the most realistic. His mom was mad and came
Yeah.
back and vengefully. But I would say the second one has to be the creepiest one because he doesn't have the iconic mask yet. He's wearing the burlap sack.
Yeah.
Burlap.
That's creepy.
Okay, you're
He's
right.
got one eye cut out of it.
The
You're like, ugh.
sack
Yeah.
with on the head, that is such a creepy thing. Back in the day, back in Texas, the whole, you might know this story, there's a movie called The Town That Dreaded Sundown, based on a true story. This guy in the Texarkana area was killing like Lover Lane type couples, and they never caught the guy, and he would wear a sack over his head to the point where I believe, and the movie says he took an instrument and put a knife in this
Yeah, at the
horn
end, yeah.
and then blew the knife into the girl's throat. I don't know how accurate that is, but back in the day, research that story.
All
The Town That Dreaded Sundown, very creepy. They never found the murderer. He killed like 7 or 8 people in that area, but he would have that sack on, and I would rather get killed by a clown, I think. I don't know. That's pretty horrible. I don't know. Clown's
He's like,
pretty-
hey, Jason. As
Yeah.
he's stabbing you.
I see. For me, a clown that would say nothing would be more horrifying than
Oh,
a
yeah.
clown that had like
What if it was just
one-liners.
just laughing? But it wasn't laughing. It was like a recording of it laughing as
That
it's killing
wouldn't
you.
bother me, I don't think.
I think silence. A silent clown would scare. Like he's kind of like they're doing the thing like.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe just making sounds like that. Like.
Oh, you're right.
That's creepy, man.
So that's the creepiest thing to you, or is the burlap sack the creepiest?
The sack is pretty darn. The idea of somebody crawling through a window with a knife and like a mask on is probably the scariest concept for me. Because to me, you know why they're there. If someone's crawling in your window with a mask on and a knife,
They're not there to rob
they
you.
are there to have their fun with you, and that's horrifying to me.
What would be, Vicky, the creepiest thing you could walk in on? The creepiest killer?
I don't like the ones like I don't like Michael Myers masks because it's similar to. I remember my older son wanted to. I mean, he went and bought the jumpsuit and everything, and he bought the expensive mask, and he hung it in the family room.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I walked in the dark into that
it
stupid
startled
family room
you?
and saw that standing there and jumped.
I knew a buddy of mine back in the day. He used to wear the Michael Myers outfit on. He'd go up to people's windows and scare them. I'm like, dude, that's fucking insane.
Oh.
How did you not get shot?
When
Exactly.
that movie Scream came out, my friends all bought that mask, and they would go to people's windows. They would record it and them knocking on the window and seeing how they could scare people. I was like, dude, you guys are gonna get
Yeah.
shot.
You're gonna get shot. You
And
would.
you would deserve it.
I mean, you would. I mean, to tell me you're scaring people.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
horrifying
And
them.
people saw that movie Scream and were horrified by it. I remember that one sat with me when I saw
Well, to me, the first 6 minutes of Scream is one of the scariest parts of any horror movie, only because during that time period, people got to understand, like I knew Drew Barrymore was in the movie. She's a big star. They're not going to kill off the star. There's no way. The first couple, I didn't know that they were killing her and
Yeah.
making her expendable. I thought that whole part, that whole scene blew me away because I wasn't expecting it.
And then the voice disguise, it makes it all so creepy because anything that humanizes you makes you less creepy. So if you can have a mask on, you don't have a face, it all helps make you scared.
The other kind of mask that scares me is when people put pantyhose over their head and make their face all look kind of squished in. I don't like that.
But anything where the killer's silent, like Jason and Michael Myers and all those, there's no sound, there's no emotion, there's nothing. So literally there's nothing behind there. There's no soul behind there. They're going to do whatever they want to do.
Well, plus you don't ruin it with corniness because sometimes a line can be, unless the line is, I want to cut off your head so I can play with it. That's a pretty well-delivered line, yeah.
See, to me, Freddy Krueger wasn't as scary because he made jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
I will say the first Nightmare on Elm Street, where Nancy, no running in the hallway, that movie was... The first Nightmare on Elm Street's really creepy. That's a scary movie. A lot of those
first in the series. Same with Michael Myers, the Halloween. The first Halloween, it almost looks real to me.
First Halloween to me, the first Halloween is is my favorite horror movie because it is realistic.
It looks real to me. It looks like somebody's filming somebody stalking somebody.
It's the ultimate nightmare. A guy escapes from the mental hospital who has murder in his heart, and he's coming into your town, and he's here now. That's it. That's the.
Now, what did you think about the remake when Rob Zombie got a hold of it?
I'm not a big fan of what they're doing now. They're releasing Halloween 2 now with Jamie Lee Curtis, and they're saying part 2 on never happened. The hospital never happened. Michael Myers was caught. He's been in jail. He's been in the hospital, and that's where we're at right now. That's what the new Halloween movie is. That's
going to wipe out all the other Halloweens.
The hospital never happened. It never blew up. None of that shit ever happened. Yep.
The hospital is the one where it's got that scene where he's got the big scissors.
Part 2.
That's part 2.
I don't know about the scissors part. I can't remember.
The doctors. It takes place in the insane asylum. Is that the third?
No, number 2 is in the hospital.
It's the same night.
Yeah, it's the same night.
Number 2 continues right from when the...
Yes, and I always love that concept. I love that when a part 2 takes place.
Up right up.
I think that's so cool because that's not an easy thing to do.
No, definitely not.
You got to know your
Continuity's got to be on point. Yeah, so 3's the one in the asylum then. Or is that 4?
No, part 3, Season of the Witch, had nothing to do with it.
Right.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it was...
So I think I only seen the first 2 Halloweens then.
But the asylum...
There's several.
So the asylum you're talking about is from part 1, but what they had done was, and back in the day, they took the original Halloween and they made it for TV. They took out parts and they had some... So if you watched Halloween back in the day as a kid and saw it on TV and you saw a scene, there's a scene where Dr. Loomis goes into the hospital and talks to a young Michael. That wasn't originally in the movie theater.
Gotcha.
They put that in there for...
Oh. Now, they did have it in the Rob Zombie version.
Yes, they did.
Where they have the whole past and it kind of shows you... some things.
There was one of the remakes. I think it was the Friday the 13th. I thought they did a good job.
The one with Jared Padalecki, the guy from Supernatural. Are you talking about that?
Yeah, the more modern one.
Yeah.
There was one Friday the 13th that was modern. I thought they did very good.
Yeah,
Basically,
it wasn't bad.
What they did was they took part 1 and made that their intro. Is what they did really.
Gotcha.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Well, But yeah, the Rob Zombie had some cool parts. It got a little too cartoonish for me.
To me, it was way too dark. I mean, I realize it's a horror movie, and I realize you're talking about a murderer, but it was like twisted, sick kind of dark for me.
Yeah, there's always that debate too, where make a scary movie, but do you have to make it with so much sexual violence or it's the sexual violence. I always feel like you don't need to put that in there.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he's trying to shock everyone. He's kind of grindhousey.
Oh yeah. I get why people do the stuff they're doing, but for me, personally, I'm like, that's.
Sometimes it's the details you imply and leave out that make it scarier.
Well, that's why I like Twilight Zone. That's why I like Alfred Hitchcock because they didn't have much to work with. They had to try to freak your mind with. I love shit that doesn't have much of a budget that still is able to freak you out, like a Halloween one. They had terrible budget for that.
Yeah,
and it was awesome. Would you rather? You guys ready to play some? So what I did this week, I had the people give us some would you rathers. So
I love it.
Put it on our Facebook. Denny's. There's multiple ones, so just everyone answer. Would you rather know when you're going to die, or would you rather know how you're going to die?
I'd probably rather know how I'm gonna die. I don't want to get rid of the mystique of knowing when.
I would not want to know when I'm going to die.
Because then all you're gonna, I mean, it's gonna consume your life, especially as you get closer to that time.
Yeah, I would rather want to know how I'm going to die.
Same here. They're like, because I mean, good gosh, if it's horrifically, you would just be like, how can I stop this?
What if they say you're going to be pissed at a truck stop and some dude with a knife is going to come up? That would suck if you found out you get murdered.
Oh my gosh!
That would suck, and you can't do anything about it. You can't prepare for it.
Because you don't know when, or like in your preparation to prevent it, you end up causing it.
Exactly. Yeah. There's something along those lines where you only know you're going to get murdered. I don't know.
That's a good question. That's tough too.
That's a tough question.
But you obviously you cross your fingers and hope it's like.
Where are you at with that, Vicky?
I'd still rather know how than when.
Yeah. When's rough.
I would not want to know, man.
No.
When.
Like a real death clock, you would not want to have.
I know. Okay, this one is for Vicky. I mean, it could be for anybody. If you were reborn in a new life, would you rather be alive in the past or in the future?
Oh, the past. So in the past. Probably Victorian period.
Yeah, the future scares me. I don't want to go into the future.
We lose a lot of luxuries, though, going in the past.
I know, but...
Like penicillin.
Yeah, air conditioning.
Just easy stuff.
Just, I don't know, breathing right.
Okay, fine. I'll go to the 60s. That's fine.
No, you don't. You know, if you want to go to the olden times and be beheaded because of you have psychic abilities, go for it.
Well, I know I would. I would totally. Well, that's why I figure Victorian period's kind of safe because they were into spiritualism. So I would be like really cool in the Victorian period with a certain group.
They might want to make you. Let's see if this witch swims. Drown her.
Or you go to the doctor and they like put 7 leeches on your neck. They're like, here, eat these crow's eggs. This will help you.
You're bleeding on your arm. Rub this radish on it.
Yeah. And then you get dysentery.
This one's for me. Would you rather never have to pay for a meal at a restaurant again or hang out with Billy Joel every time you go to a restaurant? So I'm weird when it comes to hanging. I don't like hanging with celebrities. I don't, even when we interview celebrities, it's my least favorite thing to do. I don't feel like we get real. I mean, I know you can have a real interview with somebody, but I know after the interview, they don't want to hang out. They want to go to their hotel. They want to be alone and not answer questions about stuff like that. I don't like hanging out around celebrities. It's not my thing.
Plus, they're all on guard these days because of all the stuff with social media. Everybody's always afraid they're going to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, and I freak out more about low budget celebrities than like real celebrities. Like I lost my shit when I saw Steve Weagle, the weatherman at CR Chips. You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
So I would pick the meal. Walking into any restaurant and someone's always paying for your meal, that's unbelievable.
Well, I mean, that's a huge savings. Think about how much money is spent just on food consumption.
Denny's, would you rather have Jaybird disappear forever or have every friend you had besides Jaybird disappear forever?
Probably have every friend I've ever known disappear. Only because as you get older, you start losing contact. I'd say I hang out with you. I'd say like 90% of my existence.
It's a good thing we like each other. I do believe
it'd be a big missing thing.
What's your thoughts on that, Vicky? Do you believe that sometimes people are put in each other's lives with a purpose and a plan, or did me and Denny's just meet on a mere coincidence and we just really dig each other?
No, I believe that people are in our lives, and what's funny is because I've seen this lately with Bobby Joe and myself, that it seemed like we had like certain things in common on the surface, but there are things that were so completely different. And now certain things are coming up in our lives and we find that we have yet another connection. There's still something else. So I know that we were supposed to be there to support each other through the things that we're going through.
I mean, people always say, "When are you getting married, Bird?" Give me the female Denny's.
Yeah.
Give me the female Denny's.
If you found a chick just like me,
I'll put a ring on her right now.
Yeah, I'm actually a pretty easygoing partner. Like,
you are.
Even for Jen, I feel like I'm pretty low stress.
Well, that's why when you're like, I'm marrying Jen, I'm like, you need to marry Jen because, yeah, you guys are so
we click
similar.
on so many levels.
She's not on your ass, and you're not on her ass.
I'll never get on her ass about stuff.
People always think that I'm saying girls are the ones that are always on guys' asses. No, it's vice versa. There's guys that are on girls that you can't wear this and you can't do this and all that shit. It's a personality trait. She's not on your ass about anything, and you're not on her ass about anything.
As long as she's not doing anything detrimental to her own health, I will never get on her about something.
Or disrespectful for the relationship.
Absolutely.
Dude, find me that. I'll lock that shit down. Let's see here. Vicky, would you rather be incarcerated for 10 years in a maximum security prison and still have your psychic abilities, or would you rather lose all of your psychic abilities and win $500,000?
Oh, lose the ability in the $500,000.
Really?
Yeah, because for years I didn't know I had any ability. I didn't use it. So I could easily go back to that stage before I found out. Because like prior to 2007, I had no clue that I had anything. So I could easily go back, and trust me, right now I need the money. Big time.
Well, I think we're at a point now. If people want a true on psychic reading with you where you're getting up and you're driving to their house or whatever, you should get paid for that. You deserve that.
Yeah, well, I always joke, if I had to put makeup on, then, you got to
Totally. No, you deserve that. And hopefully you'll get opportunity. You deserve those opportunities. I think that's all I got for Would You Rather, unless you guys got some stuff that you want to throw in at me off the top of the dome. Do you guys have anything to add to the podcast today? I know we got to start wrapping it up a bit. We've got an hour 10.
Yeah, we should probably wrap up just because I know.
And Denny still has a whole day of work, and I still got stuff to do for work. But Beckett is out of town. Where is Beckett? Do you guys know?
California.
Yeah,
He's in
Cali.
Cali, man, yeah.
Today's his birthday.
Today is his birthday. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
happy birthday to you. That's enough.
Well, happy birthday, Beckett.
What happy birthday song do you like better? You like that happy birthday, or do you like happy birthday, happy birthday? I hate that version.
I love that version.
Do you?
Because it's so ridiculous.
It is so ridiculous. Okay, guys, that's all we got for the Weird Whatever podcast. Thank you guys for listening. We're going to be out at the Boca Blue Martini this Friday. It'll be Denny's, myself, Kevin.
The boys are out on town.
Vicky, we'd love to have you. You were supposed to come the last one, and you kind of stood us up.
No.
So pretty fucked up. All right.
I know.
Okay, we love you all, and Bigfoot is real.